And so what would you say are the biggest myths that women are still being told about hormones and midlife?
That they don't matter. Perimenopause isn't real. That living 40 years post-menopause is natural, right? Like, it's just myth after myth after myth. Like, that sex is supposed to be painful. That, like, the suffering is supposed to be tolerable. And the myth of natural is actually very interesting, and I researched it for the book, because so many women are told, like, it's just natural. Like, just deal with it. And it's like, we treat everything else that's natural. Like, if you fall and break your ankle, I'm not like, Max, that's natural. Like, deal. You're like, I'd like to see if I can put the bone back in the leg. Like, surgery is good, right? And so the myth of natural falls away so quickly. Like, if you need glasses, I don't tell you it's natural to not see well, or hearing aids, or teeth, or a hip, or a heart valve. Like, we treat all these naturally aging things in healthcare, but with ovaries, we're like, hold on, that's natural. Do that one without support. Like, it just makes no sense. And the myth of natural is actually this, like, philosophical belief that if it exists in nature, it's therefore superior. And so I think it comes into this, like, purity culture for women, this perfectionist culture for women, this, like, be as close to the nature as you can for women, of, like, it's a really great way to, like, silence them, keep them down, keep them suffering, and it works. So I love busting the myth of natural all the time for people, because you're like, oh, flossing isn't natural, right? Like, it falls away so quickly.
I love that. And it's, I love that we're going there, because, I mean, I think that there are some contexts in which an appeal to nature might be reasonable, but then I think that there are others when it's totally unreasonable. Like, if you've got a headache, take a medicine for it. I mean, I have a prosthetic L5S1 disc.
Right.
You know, if I just were trying to avoid all things unnatural, I mean, I wouldn't have gone through with this life-changing surgery for myself.
Yeah.
So this idea that we can replace hormones that would otherwise recede at a certain point in our lives, and in so doing dramatically improve quality of life.
And I think
potentially help avert awful diseases like Alzheimer's disease,
Totally.
which we're going to talk about. Very exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, everybody agrees menopause is natural at a certain point. Ovaries are only so big, and the size of an ovary is dependent upon the size of the mammal, right? So an elephant's ovary is bigger than a human's ovary. And how big it is how many follicles it has, and follicles make hormones. So if this machine runs for a while, eventually it's just going to run out of follicles, right? It's not because nature told it to, or it's holy or anything like that. And us living to an average age of 84 as a society, one could argue, is not natural, right? Antibiotics alone extend the average American's lifespan by 26 years. And so you're like, dude, we've done everything, clean water, sanitation, right? A supply of food. So it's like we're living 40 years past the natural exhaustion of an ovary. And here we are saying, well, yeah, let's live that long and let's do everything to live that long, but let's not replace this one organ, but we'll replace your heart valve, we'll replace your shoulder, we'll replace your teeth, we'll replace your eyes, we'll replace everything else. Like, it's insanity when you start thinking of it like that.
But why were so many women so afraid of HRT for so many years?
Yeah. So in 2002, the Women's Health Initiative, we call it the WHI, was a massive study, federally funded, to answer a very specific question. The specific question was, if we give women hormones, will we decrease the risk of heart disease? They already knew the answer was yes, but they didn't have a randomized placebo-controlled trial, which is considered the gold standard, right? But cardiologists, if you look at the literature in the 90s, the cardiologists were like, this is great. They have less heart disease. They have less heart failure. They have lower blood pressure, all of these things. But let's prove it. So they did this massive study enrolling older women who had minimal symptoms, average age 63, average age of menopause 50, 51, right? So older women didn't have symptoms, and they stopped it prematurely. The crazy thing about this study is it's free online right now. Like, you can go read this study right now. And if you were to pull it up and you were to read it, which is the 2002 Women's Health Initiative, it says, got close to statistical significance for increased risk of breast cancer. Which, if you're a scientist, you know, if it didn't reach a statistical significance, then it wasn't statistically significant. We don't care if it got close. That's not science, right? So the paper is free online, but back in 2002, there was no internet. There was no email. As a physician, I would get that paper in the mail a week after it got released, right? So they went to the press first, which again is a big no-no. Like, publish it so people can read it before you go to the press. But they didn't. So the press got a hold of it. The press basically blew up, said this causes breast cancer, probably causes heart disease. People were like flushing their hormones down the toilet. The doctors got the paper a week later, and there's no social media. There's no podcasts, right? No emails. So there's no way to like put the genie back into the bottle. And they said, if you go to the press and say this, a genie will leave the bottle, we'll never be able to get it back in. And here we are 23 years later, we are still like struggling to put the genie back in the bottle of hormones are safe. The breast cancer incidence did not reach statistical significance. And furthermore, in the estrogen alone arm, they had a decreased risk of breast cancer. So it was actually opposite of what the media said.
Wow.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. Like we're talking to investigative journalists of like, does anybody want to do this story? Like this is a massive story, and it like needs to be shared in like a way that people will finally like bury the coffin.
Wow. Imagine that, the mainstream media spreading misinformation.
Yeah, right? It's been going on for a while.
What a concept.
This is not new. Yeah.
Insane. So it did irreparable harm to the
Yeah.
public image of this therapy.
Yeah. And so the doctors who got the journal a week later and read it said, this is not actually that bad. And those physicians kept their women on hormones. So there is a small section of women who've stayed on hormones for 20 years. They're now 84, right? And if you talk to them, you can be like, you know, what do you want? And they're like, we'll never stop these hormones. Like they got through. But a good 60 to 80% of women didn't. Because, you know, most doctors aren't reading journal papers and like critically evaluating it. But back, you know, when people ask me, they're like, how happy are you going to be? How many women need to be on hormones for you to be happy? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I'm not here to tell women to go on hormones. I'm here that they get accurate information and they know how to advocate. Then they decide what they want to do. Women are smart. They can figure things out. I'm not here to tell them how to live their life. And I don't care. Like, that's their body, not mine. But in the 1990s, before the WHI, 40% of American women were on hormones. Now it's about 5%. So I'm like, can we just get back to the 90s? Like there was a time when a lot of women were on hormones because they're safe and they're effective.
When did that therapy start being administered? Like, I didn't realize it's
40s.
In the 40s.
In the
Wow.
40s. So like testosterone and estrogen are called sex hormones because they were discovered in like turkey testicles and bull ovaries, right? Like animal gonads, basically. And so they were like, hey, if you give this to somebody, it develops their sex characteristics. So they were labeled as sex hormones. I think to this day, that's a mislabeling because they're neurohormones. They're in your bone. They help your muscle. They help your heart, right? I can't say sex on Instagram.
Crazy.
Right. So we finally got fed up and I'm like, I'm sick of not being able to say sex on Instagram. Let's rename these hormones. So we had like a Zoom meeting with like 23 menopause experts. We're like, what should we call these things? Right? Because sex seems like extra to people. Like, you're not reproducing. Do you need these things? We're like, can we call them neurohormones? What should we call them? So we kind of call them PET therapy now, which is progesterone, estrogen, testosterone.
Pet therapy.
PET therapy, or precision endocrine therapy is also the same acronym. But so we're kind of like taking that on. It's easier to say on Instagram because Instagram has a sex bias. So they were starting to give extracts of this back in the 40s. They were starting to give testosterone to women in the 40s because women were suffering and they wanted solutions. And then the pharmaceutical companies started really with synthetic ones. The newer bioidentical, which is exactly what your body makes, that's kind of newer formulation. But we've been giving women synthetic hormones for 80 years at this point.
Wow. I mean, it kind of dovetails with the story that I'm somewhat more familiar with regarding very interesting and might sound tangential but related, BPA. Bisphenol A, which is a well-known endocrine disruptor, laces, hardens plastic, saturates our store register receipts, was originally designed to be an estrogen replacement.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, BPA.
Now it's on receipts.
And now it's on receipts. Yeah. They realized that it was originally designated to be an estrogen replacement, and they realized that it could be used to create plastic. And then that's probably around the same time, I'm guessing, that they came up with they were like, synthetic is probably not the ideal path.
Yeah. It's super interesting because, we were talking earlier of like why, if bioidentical hormones now are proving so beneficial, why aren't they having Super Bowl ads, right? Like the big blockbuster drugs that have Super Bowl ads. It's like because they're not brandable, they're not patentable, they're generic, naturally occurring molecules. They're very hard to make a ton of money on a unique, patentable way. And so I think that's another reason of like, it's people aren't learning about it unless they're learning about podcasts like this, because you're not going to see it on Super Bowl. Like there's no Super Bowl ad that says this probably might reduce your risk of dementia by 20 to 30%.
Damn. All right, so this harm was done to the public image of this of this therapy, these hormone replacement, and now experts such as yourself, you're really like putting in the legwork, trying to basically unwind all of that misinformation.
Yeah. I mean, my story is unique because I'm a urologist, right? So a urologist is a special surgeon who does the genital urinary tract. So kidney stones to prostate cancer to bladder cancer to testicle surgery, right? We're really the genital urinary system.
Do you work with men and women?
Yeah. And that's what gave me kind of my social media superpower in one way, because unlike the gynecologists, I take care of all genders, right? So I've got this group of people and we're like, oh, you have trouble with your sex life and your hormones? Let's give you testosterone and Viagra. And this group of people is told, like, getting old is natural and maybe, have a glass of wine and, like, find an acupuncturist, right? And so I'm like, same problems, different people, different treatment in medicine. And that, like, gender bias, because it was so profound in my practice, I'm able to kind of speak that. Whereas the gynecologists don't know what we tell men, right? And with men, we're like, dude, that's a problem. It's a problem if your erections don't work, and it's a problem if you don't want to get out of the couch. Right? And for women, they're like, I don't feel like myself and sex hurts. And we're like, oh, well, try some lube. Like women are told horrific things to try to make their sex life better. And so I got into it because of genital urinary syndrome of menopause, which hormones are everywhere. They are in your brain, they're in your bones, they're in your muscle, they're everywhere. And they help your bladder, they help your clitoris, they help your labia, they help your genitals, they help your vagina. And when your hormones go down, all those things start to function less well. And so women come to me with recurrent urinary tract infections, overactive bladder, getting up at night to pee, pain with sexual penetration. And I'm like, vaginal estrogen's like God's elixir. It's like the best essential oil. Like, give it back to your pelvis, right? But they're like, I'm afraid of estrogen. And furthermore, the black box warning on it that the FDA slapped on all estrogen products after the WHI is so incorrect, it's laughable at this point. But a friend published a study that if a woman's lucky enough to get a vaginal estrogen prescription, and she goes home and she opens up the boxed warning from the FDA, and it says probable dementia, blood clot, liver disease, heart disease, she's not going to use it. About 30% of women will not use it, even if they're lucky enough to get it, and all of that product labeling is wrong. So we went to the FDA in July to talk to them about it.
Wow. Marty McCary seems like he would be totally on board with.
He's completely on board with it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shout out to Marty McCary, who's a past Genius Life podcast guest, now heads up the FDA.
Yeah. Pretty awesome.
Hey, if you liked that video, you need to check out this one here, and I'll see you there.